Bernert. I hope I got her name right because I've been struggling to get her name right for a while, and I don't want to mess it up. And today's topic, before
It's okay.
I welcome Suzanne formally, um, I wanted to give you guys a brief background about why I decided to do this podcast today. Today's podcast is called "Stereotypes in Cinema." I did not use the word Bollywood, Hollywood, Hindi cinema, German cinema for a reason. I wanted to have a larger discussion about stereotypes, and I will give you guys a brief background as to where I am coming from and why I reached out to Suzanne to talk about this. Now, we've all grown up in this generation, at least the English speaking Indians, who have seen different stereotypes being portrayed through the world of cinema. Now, when I say cinema, it could be television series too, it could be movies, anything. So whether it's Apu in Simpsons, whether it's the Indian always being the geeky, nerdy guy in American cinema. When it comes to, I don't know why Americans do this, but Indians are not Asians. Everybody else is Asian. It's very weird, but that's another stereotype which is very North American. When it comes to those stereotypes, all martial artists, like every Asian is supposed to know martial arts for some odd reason in cinema. That's a stereotype. When it comes to stereotypes in India, we don't even realize how many stereotypes we have in our own movies, in our own creation, where different ethnicities, different races, different castes are stereotyped in a certain way. Now, with Suzanne, I came across her work in India. She speaks. First of all, she speaks so many languages. Suzanne is perfectly Indian because Indians are used to being multilingual, and Suzanne is multilingual herself. And then I came across her work, so I reached out to Suzanne and I asked her whether she would like to, discuss this subject with me because at times it's a sensitive subject too, and it needs nuance. And she said yes. So, Suzanne, thank you very much for coming.
It's my pleasure.
So let's start over here, Suzanne. When somebody talks to you about, I know when I reached out to you on WhatsApp, your experience as an artist in India has been very positive, as you told me. So maybe we can
Yes.
start with your journey before we delve a little bit into the stereotypes in cinema. Could you tell everybody about your journey? Because I was so happy to hear when we were talking on WhatsApp and you said, Kushal, I have nothing but positivity to share about India. And I was like, wow. So maybe we can start on a positive note before I start hammering on everyone.
No, it was not something that I planned. I was just on holiday in Dubai after I finished an acting assignment in Germany, and I met production controller there, a good friend of mine now, Raj Putran, and he introduced me to a director who was casting a small part for the movie he shot there. Om Puri was in it, and some other people were in it, and it was really a tiny part. And after we shot, we befriended each other. It was very interesting. I like to hang out on sets, and I was like very interested in the whole technical aspect as well, the camera work, the light work. I'm not only an actor who wants to be in front of the camera. I like the whole what all goes behind it, how much work is behind any project. And so after that, we became friends. He invited me to India. I came here first time 2004 in September, and I met. He had a show running at that time. He was not doing only movies. He was a TV show producer, Ajay Sinha, and he had a very big show at that time called. Oh, 1 second. Okay, what was the name of the show? Oh wow, I have a blank. Okay, so I did meet everybody on the set of that show, Varun Badola, Harsh Chaya, Nikki Aniravalia, and it was Astitva Ek Prem Kahani. So on that set, I met all these actors, and I befriended his wife as well, Ajay's wife as well, and the son. And I stayed with them for like a few weeks. And met Dolly Thakur here as well, and Alec Padamsi, and moved around Mumbai. What was much more difficult at that time, taxis to get were not so easy, and it was a whole different time at that time. The first mall was coming up in Infinity Mall. Hypercity was a dream. It hadn't been there yet, and it was a very different time. It's only 17 years, but in Mumbai has changed so much. So then I flew back to Germany, and he called me in December that same year in 2004, and he said, there's a part of a British character in my TV show, Astitva, and do you want it? And I was like, ah! No question about it. So I accepted the part, got the part, played Catherine Sithwa in London and in India, in Mumbai. It was an amazing experience. And after that, I looked for more projects and I got a lot of work.
All right. So, in your view, if I was to ask your views, now I have a certain view, and but this podcast is not about just my views; it's about the views of my guests. And do you think just stereotyping in general in cinema, or because I'll give you a very different example from the world of comedy. Now, I hope most people have heard of Russell Peters. Russell Peters' entire comedy routine is playing with stereotypes. He
Hmm.
always has the Chinese stereotype, the Indian stereotype, and Russell tries to mock people using stereotypes, and he tries to show every culture their blind spots, and he tries to basically, Russell has made a life out of milking stereotypes in a positive way, not in a negative way, right? But if I
Yeah.
was to ask you, where do you stand on this whole larger issue of stereotypes in cinema? Do you think it's a good thing, a bad thing, or maybe it's a bit of both?
I think we first have to understand what stereotyping is, because if somebody comes into the you come into the world and you don't know about stereotypes, your child, yeah, you don't know what that is, and you just you play with anybody, you don't look at people, you have a very fresh point of view. And by living in the society, what is a must, you cannot not live in the society, you're being formed by the society. So then comes into play that you see a certain person and you had an association with that person and an opinion about the person, and then you see somebody who's similar, and then you get the same, you put that into the same box. So I would say that's a kind of stereotyping. I would also say to some extent, I think it is even needed, because if you cannot take everybody individually, you will go crazy. You cannot take each and every human being as they are, and make all the differences. I mean, we know all of this, we want it to be like that, but that's a perfect world. So that's one thing. Then stereotyping, then life imitates art, art imitates life. So if we are stereotyping in life, then it's only natural that it will spill over into movies and into television. And stereotyping makes it easier. Yeah. If you just make a character in a box, yeah, from all the sides it's fitting. It's very easy for you to accept it as an audience, because you don't have to think outside of the box. You just see, okay, ek firang hai, gore hai, हल्का सा हिंदी आती है या कुछ नहीं आता है, या she is like this, she's like that, and वो comedy automatically बन जाते हैं. Yeah, the idealization of that she is trying to speak Hindi and that she loves the Indian culture, that kind of a spiel. I played those characters. But because they're positive characters, I don't mind them. I find it is more difficult when you're going towards a negative portrayal of foreigners, where the stereotyping is going towards abuse, drug abuse, or the stereotyping goes towards prostitution, and the stereotyping goes towards all these things that are not, that you don't want to be having. I don't know. You cannot make these assumptions that you see just one bunch of people are doing just one thing, and one bunch of people they're just doing the other thing, and that's when it becomes dangerous.
What was interesting is I was actually reading the history of problems in cinema, and I had actually, when I had Ravina on the podcast too, I'd spoken about this a research paper that I'd studied, which basically looked at Bollywood and Hollywood. Obviously, it was they had a limited sample set, and they looked at certain movies, keyword analysis, topic analysis, story analysis, and what they tried to see is what kind of stereotypes. So there are gender stereotypes, there are race stereotypes, there are multiple stereotypes that I come across, and they did not find a statistically significant difference between Bollywood or Hollywood, by the way. And then
Hmm.
when I was thinking, like, we've come a long way. Like, if I remember Hollywood in the early 40s, 50s, 60s, and they would do those horrendous things like blackface. Right? They used to do those horrendous things very openly. And by the way, I clearly remember a Pakistani skit on cricket, And the whole skit was, there was a Pakistani cricket analyst, and on the other side there was another Pakistani who was playing a Bangladeshi cricket analyst. And see, I'm giving you the same example, but even in that case, this brown person from Pakistan did a blackface to portray a Bangladeshi there. People can check it out. It's available on the internet too, and they apparently it's supposed to be a funny segment, and they added the blackface into it. And then you look at what happens in the other sides of in the West, and you have that face. By the way, the blackface stick has ended, at least in the West. Now nobody does it anymore, except if you're a bodybuilder and you have to do it. And it's because they just spray tan themselves, because that's just the way it is. So as of now, only bodybuilders do it. They have to do it. Apparently the detail on the body just comes in a certain color, so they're allowed. They're not cancelled anymore. But in India or in Bangladesh or in the subcontinent, this was done just a few years ago in a comedy skit in Pakistan. And I was like, wow, we don't get it apparently. But then that goes away, and then you have these caricatures created where, I mean, I know the standard joke, right? Oh, that Asian people don't know how to drive. This is a very standard joke made in American television all the time, like because you just mentioned this on how life imitates art, and sometimes art imitates life,
Mhm.
and it's a two-way process. Now, how do we because look, let's be real, stereotypes at times are correct too. Because if you look at the average Indian in the United States of America, although the
Mm.
sample size is very limited, it is not a representative sample of India. But the Indians who are in America are very good at tech. Whether we like it or not, they are good at tech. So if you were having a stereotype about Indians in America, they're just tech geeks, you'd actually not be wrong. Or let's say a generation before them, a lot of them own 7-Elevens. And if that stereotype is portrayed, or gas stations, like Punjabis owning petrol pumps in America is actually a pretty safe thing to say. Or let's say being a truck driver, because they do go into these professions, and it is just sociological realities. But how do we present it in a palatable way in cinema, if I was to ask you that?
I think that's up to the filmmakers to ask themselves what kind of characters they want to portray on any given platform. The projects that are being made. That you're asking yourself, is this a stereotype, or is this somebody who's really like this, or are we going to um, yeah, how are we portraying people in a right way? Because as you said, people who were emigrating and going to America, they got the job because of their skill. So that, and then it becomes a stereotype, even though the job requirements in that country were for techies from here, because people there couldn't do it, or they had a bigger requirement. Because why are people going there? And then suddenly it becomes a stereotype. Hmm. And then the other thing, uh, uh, as an actor, you don't have much influence on these kinds of stories, or you can only do very little, a very limited thing. Because I had encountered a few situations where I was trying to talk to the producer about it. There was a sequence in a TV show where there was my daughter was getting married, or yeah, somebody was getting married, and she wanted to wear a white dress. And then they were like, no, because she's marrying an Indian boy, she should wear a sari. So she was wearing a red sari. But then the heroine of that show, she had to wear a white dress. So she came in a white dress. Like they were saying, no white dress, but she had to wear the white dress because, yeah, okay. So these kinds of, then it can go in the other direction as well, that it's removed from reality. That I was saying, you cannot, nobody else should wear white at the wedding except the bride. If you are in a church, that is a Christian way of doing it. You want it or you don't want it to be. But then the situation was like this, that she wanted to wear a white dress, so she was wearing the white dress. And then I was saying, but guys, you are yeah, not abusing, but you are this is not nice towards the people, the Christians who are watching the show, maybe because you are showing it in the wrong way. And I see this wrong presentation a lot of times with yoga in the West, a very painful depiction of yoga where they're calling it a yoga center, and then they throw everything in the pot, they make a mishmash out of it, and they're adding all kinds of from reiki to acupuncture to, and then they're calling it all yoga. And I go like, oh my god, you cannot research. I mean, the moment you do a little research, then you can't use these stereotypes anymore.
So,
So, but as I said, as an actor, you have very limited influence on any given project.
so you've actually hit the nail on the head, and this was going to be my next follow up to you about the research bit. So, what I have seen, when at least in Indian cinema, full disclosure, I have stopped watching Indian cinema for a while. I just it's a time decision, because I rather read books, and I'm happy reading books, and I have nothing against Indian cinema. Full disclosure, I wish them well. I wish them all the success and happiness. But my point is that bad research turns me off. Now, this is a factual statement. Let's say um, I can't. Take the name of the person who had shared the story, because uh, and I'm going to create a parallel way of explaining the story without giving away the movie or something. Let's say you have a movie where you're showing a procession that is of Shias, but the director just wants to market it as a generic Muslim thing, and they say add a Sunni bit in it. Now, that's actually insulting to the Shia community, because it's not according to their faith, and it's equally insulting to the Sunni community. And this has actually happened in Indian cinema. I clearly remember this, because when somebody narrated the story, I actually went and checked it, and I was like, damn, yeah, they really messed this one up. So here's the bit I don't understand. And then I started looking at all Muslim representations everywhere. And I did realize that even when it comes to Hindu representations, Muslim representation, like, they don't understand the difference between a Catholic wedding, or a Protestant wedding, or a Lutheran, or anything. There is a Christian thing, somebody's going to throw the thing, somebody's going to catch the thing, they're going to throw something, there's going to be the father walking the bride, and they don't know the nuances. If it's a Hindu wedding, they think everybody does that Saat Fere. They don't realize that Hindus don't do Saat Fere, different Hindus do different things, and
The
it is
turban,
pretty.
everybody's
Yeah,
wearing the turban. Oh, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But why do you think they are so pathetic at research? I mean, does research cost so much money, or they're just lazy, and they are condescending to their audiences?
Ooh, that's a harsh one, condescending to the audience, but sometimes that is hitting the nail on the head as well, no? Because if the audience is accepting it and they are not saying anything about it, at the same time, how does the audience say anything except by ratings? They stop watching, but then you don't know why do they stop watching, because if you stop watching a show because you're not liking the way people are being portrayed in it, they will blame the lead characters of the show that they don't have any charisma and they're not pulling in the audience. So if the audience would want to say something about the stereotyping, then or the lack of research, how would it even reach those people who are making the projects? As an actor, I love a backstory. I love to have something where I could put teeth in, and I make up my own backstories, because many a times you're coming into a show, and I heard so many times somebody say, "Just be yourself." I said, "Myself." That's why I didn't become an actor just to be myself. If I want to be myself, I'm at home. I'm with my family. I'm with my friends. Or the way I'm talking to you now, that's me. But if I want to be somebody, that's why I'm an actor, because I want to be somebody else. So if you just say, just be yourself, mm, and then I make my backstories, and that's a research, and I love doing that. So I don't understand why they don't do the research, or if somebody comes with the knowledge. I did another movie and I had a big discussion about the name of the character because the name given to me, she was saying it is a German name. And I said, I'm German. I never heard this name. This name is not German. I can show you. I Googled it even. I asked my family, I asked my parents, is this name German? And they're like, what? So I was given a German name in a a Bollywood movie that was not German. And I tried to tell the director about it, and she was not ready to listen to me. So what do you do then? You can't. There's only so much I can do.
So I guess it's just the bottom line matters. People don't care about accuracy in general. People. So I guess the other side to the argument in defense of bad research would be it's not the job of the creator to do actual researches, because cinema is about suspension of belief. When a person, I'm asking you whether is this the reason when I go to a cinema hall or where I watch something on the OTT and I'm looking at my television set, I don't want someone to stand there like a teacher going, okay, accurate, 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, 100 out of 100 kind of a scenario. I just want suspension of belief. I'll give you an example. So Neil deGrasse Tyson, he's a physicist, he's a scientist. He does this a lot. When some movie comes and it is on science fiction or science, especially in the realm of physics. So Neil deGrasse Tyson has this habit of looking at all the scientific claims made in the movie, and then he starts breaking them down. This is unscientific, this is not science, this is that. And he is like the proper, party pooper on social media who always destroys every single thing in science fiction or science-based movies. He says this is not. So he has these levels, right? He's like, okay, this is an interesting concept, but I have not seen even a thought representing something like this, and this is just not possible in the realm of physics. So he
Hmm.
would actually he started looking at Avengers and he was like, what the hell are these guys talking about? This is not possible, that is not possible. So what do you do? Where do we draw the line? Is there a line according to you where something is just blatantly obvious? Like, that's why I use the blackface example. That's just blatantly obvious,
Hmm.
we should
Hmm.
not
Yeah,
do that.
that's very obvious. That's very
But
obvious.
in these things, like you said, it's not a German name. And if you ask me, I would find it offensive. If Why am I being given something which is not a German name? It's actually unfair on people. But then what do we do in such a scenario?
I had a very clever co-actor who used to tell me, "Don't ask any questions, don't get in trouble," because I was asking too many questions, and then the director was getting really pissed off at me and yelled at me and everything. So yeah, so he was just giving me this little advice. So an actor always has to see and gauge सामने कौन कौन है, उनका दिमाग का काम करते हैं कि नहीं काम करते हैं, क्या हो रहा है उनकी दुनिया में, and you have to yeah, yeah, yeah. हो जाएगा कि नहीं? So if you find somebody who's actually able to talk, where you are able to say something and that can be incorporated. क्योंकि अगर तुम्हारे पास एक German actress है, तो फायदा उठा लो. Yeah, if I'm telling you, you're getting it from the horse's mouth. I can't be more knowledgeable about my own country, or can I? And the same should be done in other countries as well. Big big Hollywood movie, super hit, one actor in it, and he's a South Indian guy. I can see it. And what is his name? He got a North Indian name. And I go like, these kinds of things should not happen. And I'm very sure that the actor was also hitting his head. And the question is there, are they also like that in Hollywood, that an actor cannot say anything? Because they gave me the impression that there is more, you can give more creative input, but maybe that's just a myth. So I don't know. We are limited in what we're doing. We can only do as much as we are allowed to do as an actor. So
But
sometimes it's painful, something different. Hmm.
if I was to ask you, are discussions around stereotypes? I'm not talking about on the record, but let's say off the record, when people are there on a movie set or just in a scenario where they're going for dinner or just hanging out, do they have these discussions? Just creative people, whether they're actors or whether they're directors or whether they're producers, do they have these discussions where they have a sentiment of getting over stereotypes and not portraying people as in a certain box? Do they think like that?
I wouldn't know. I haven't had any in-depth discussion with people except with my husband, who's the one person where I'm gelling with, and I'm chatting with these things with Akhil. And we look at the stuff that we watch online very deep. We're looking at the stereotypes, but we're also looking how people are with each other and how they're trying to normalize certain stereotypes, or they're trying to normalize situations where I'm thinking this is getting a little bit out of hand, because in every movie there has to be a gay couple, in every movie there's a white woman and a black guy, in every movie, in every TV show, these things are being shown now and they're being normalized. I don't mind having it, but is it really like that, the reality now there in America, that everybody is everybody, it happens all the time? Is that also not a stereotyping? Because I don't know how many are there. I have one gay friend and he was in a relationship, but that's one story around me. And is that so normal that is that going into a stereotyping in another direction, where you're showing it as something that is something you want to achieve, to aspire to? Is it the way we are supposed to be in the future?
All right, that's very interesting. So I guess what you're saying is that in especially in Hollywood, you do have these trends where I'll give you an example of shows that are consistently old. Before people judge me, well, I was watching Walking Dead. Yeah, I still watch Walking Dead. Uh, uh, Guilty as charged. So what I noticed was there was a particular way The Walking Dead was till season 6 and season 7, right? And then
Yeah.
America changed. The politics in America
Mm.
changed. The social politics in America changed. The way academia reacted and the hold of academia on American society changed. So suddenly, The Walking Dead has a lesbian role.
Okay.
Then The Walking Dead
Okay.
has a gay role. I have nothing against lesbians or gays, nor do I have a
No,
problem with those characters in the series. I'm actually glad the
yeah,
characters came, but it is so
it
obvious
works.
that yeah
Huh.
that the American social landscape changes here, and the
Okay.
casting in Walking Dead changes here. And then
Okay.
you have, before that, you did not have an African American and a white man or a white woman as a couple in the Walking Dead. Everything happens after season 7. You can look at the Game of Thrones. The same story in the Game of Thrones. In the last 2 seasons, you have a change. You literally see these patterns on American television where you can literally see, okay, now, so what I call this is the stamp of the diversity, equity, inclusion mindset on creativity, where they want to show. But so if I am getting you right, are you saying that in this obsession of a diversity, equity, inclusion mindset, we are actually perpetuating stereotypes, if I'm getting you right?
It feels like that. It actually feels like that, because I don't. If every story has to come under the scanner for this, and every story has to have these ingredients, then what are we doing? If you're telling the story and that story needs to be told, and the story is of a lesbian girl who wants to go out in the world and do her thing, fantastic, yeah. And if she's on the way meeting a black friend, because that is just working with the story and the writer is writing in a flow and it comes naturally, then I not even think about these things. I will just go into the story and I will forget about all of this. But if every 5 seconds I feel like somebody's doing this to me and the story is not flowing, then I have the feeling it has been put in to cover all the bases.
This is so fascinating that
But
you say
then,
this. This is almost as if there is a mob sitting outside, constantly looking to throw sticks and stones at you, and you, as a creative person, are basically doing the necessary protection so that the mob doesn't attack you. So if the mob comes at you, you say, "Look, we had a lesbian character. Look, we had a gay character. We had an African
yeah,
American character. We had this
yeah,
character. We had that character." It's a different story that that character had nothing to do with the movie at all, but we still have all of them. So we have completed our diversity quota of representing all kinds of things. So do you think this will have
and
a
it's, yeah,
disproportionate impact on creativity?
Yeah, and it is very sad because I watch a movie and then I see there is this girl who's really pretty and she is African American and she's a fabulous actress, and they just got her in to tick off a stereotype box, in my opinion, because she's just there to be included and she's not being utilized. Yeah, you can see so many shows. There is this African American, really gorgeous girl, and she's the friend, best friend of the white female character who's the lead of the show or the movie. And then there is the quirky Indian guy. Yeah. And it's just ticking boxes. And I would like to see their character, either you bring it in and evolve it, make it into a substantial, uh, dimensional human being, and not make it into a cartoon character where you just copy, like, okay, done, 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 and okay, cello.
But
I
then
find it sad.
how do we solve this problem, right? Because I can flip it around
Make
and
good
it's very
movies.
interesting. So
Make good stories. Think about good stories. Make a research and come up with stories that are engaging and that are researched and make sense. Tell a story from your heart, because I have the feeling people are just like, अरे ये box office में क्या होता है, क्या चल रहा है, या हम कैसे, क्या अभी साउथ मूवीज हिट में है तो कौन से वाले हम कॉपी करेंगे, अभी चलो चलो क्या करेंगे. Yeah, it is that kind of a thing is going on where you feel like, don't you have a story to tell? I have scripts lying here that I wrote with my feelings, with my emotion, with my complete obsession that I was drowning in. I forgot what time it is, and I was writing it, and I was researching it, and I just wanted to make a beautiful story where people go in. And I don't want to think about these things. I just want to write stories. I don't want to think about which boxes I have to tick or who I have to appease or what is going on. But I want to do a good story. I want to do good research, and I will be open to discussion about it. I will bring people into a team who will question me, who will give me ideas. I will not be a captain of my ship if I direct a movie. I don't want to be the person where people are saying, oh, I can't tell her. I want to listen to everybody, because the more opinions you take on board, maybe it is making your project better. I'm the captain. Yes, I will do this movie the way I see it, but I will not shut all the doors in my ears and not listen to anybody who might have a really good opinion and can bring something on board that I would have missed otherwise. It's story making. It's basically the story making has to probably change, go back to creativity.
but then if you don't mind me asking this, every business ultimately is driven by the bottom line, right? If there is no return on investment, as they say, ROI, they're not going to pursue it. But do you think how much of it is driven by just monetary goals, or it is just in America? I guess the entire culture has flipped. The I think American society now at the creative realm is just about walking on eggshells. Everybody's walking on eggshells, and everybody is scared. That's what's happening in the United States of America. But if I was to ask you from the perspective of just the return on investment, and let me play the devil's advocate here, somebody might come and say, well, Suzanne, yeah, I get it, it might be creatively wrong, but at the end of the day, this sells. I'm just going to sell it because at the end of the day, I'm doing a business. What do you say to that?
Is it selling? Is it selling nowadays? Because we're having an audience who has become very, very choosy, picky, and good stories are running. Good stories are being watched. Important stories are being watched. Yeah, I don't even need to know to say the name of the movie. Yeah, a story that needs to be told, a story that needs to get out, a story that is well done. Or yeah, it will automatically run. Why are there movies that you never heard of and they're running 4 to 6 weeks in the cinema? Because it's word of mouth. Somebody goes, sees a good movie, sees a good show, and then they go and the word spreads, and then more and more people go. And if it is something that people don't want to see, the exact opposite is also happening. If you say it's selling, yeah, show me the numbers, and if that everybody has to choose their own way. If you're saying this makes money and this is the way I'm going to do it, make it. But I see so many times it's not working anymore.
So now I'm going to pick a couple of questions up because this is very important, and that's why I actually called you here. I wanted to talk about this. Like, this is so true because Russians are always portrayed as goons in Indian cinema, whether we like it or not. They're not. They are portrayed always like that. They are always the guys with the guns going out, trying to kill someone, and or just nuke the living daylights out of everyone. Unfortunately, African Americans or Africans in general are portrayed as criminals inside Indian cinema. And when it comes to the British, okay, I get many bad things were done by the British in the past, but what has that got to do with it today? But even today, like, do you think Indian cinema has come to a path where we can get over these stereotypes, where Russians can actually do just other things other than trying to bomb the living daylights out of everyone?
It depends what kind of movie you're making. If it is a typical Bollywood movie, you will have to stick with the stereotypes. Yeah, I don't see any way around it. But if it is a different kind of a movie, then you can ask yourself if it might make it even more interesting if it is not. If you can come
But
up with some other story, if you can show people beyond their nationality. Because when I came here in 2005, it was a rarity that I was doing TV, I was doing movies, I was different things, but now more and more actors are coming into India, and I think there's a market for it as well because we're getting more and more. It's getting more and more open. It's more and more cosmopolitan. More and more stories where um, foreigners are not just background or bahus or whatever. I think it could be interesting if you can expand this and go beyond this labeling. But if it's a typical Bollywood thing, then it will stay like that. As long
yeah,
as these
that
movies run, it will stay like that.
yeah,
With
that's
the
so
item
depressing
song
to
and the
hear.
dance in the rain and because they're stereotyping not only us, they're stereotyping themselves.
Yeah, it
And
is
some actors
depressing
have
to
become a stereotype. Some actors have become a living stereotype. They have become a copy of themselves. What they used to be fresh and what they used to be when they started their career and what was a big success at that time. They're copying now. They have become a stereotype of themselves. They can't invent themselves fresh. Okay, I have aged. I have to step back. I have to reevaluate myself. I pick different projects. So they have become a stereotype.
Okay, I'm going to ask you this question. How does one get out of this stereotype? Because this is a serious problem. So, Arun Govil played the role of Bhagwan Sri Ram in the famous original Ramayana series. Look, that series gripped India like anything,
Yeah.
till the extent I clearly remember people touching his feet as if he's really Lord Ram. That's
Yeah.
what people. Now, how the hell does one get out of that stereotype? That is like the epitome of stereotypes. Imagine if you're Arun Govil and then you try to go and do the role of some daku, some dacoit in a movie. Like, people are never gonna forgive you. You just did Sri Ram and now you're doing dacoit. So okay, solve this problem for me, Suzanne.
Yeah, it's difficult. I think Amitabh Bachchan went through that when he was trying to do different characters in different parts, and but he persisted on doing different parts, and to some extent it worked as well because he's doing things now that I wouldn't have imagined him being able to do a couple of years back, like really interesting cinema. So I don't know. Yeah, it's just difficult. Once if you get such a stamp on you, I don't know what to do with that. That's a difficult one that you just said because even in the rerun during COVID, the numbers people who were watching that, no, Ramaya, it was crazy. It was crazy. So if it's such a hit, then I don't know what to do because there is this. It's not such a. It's a big show. It's been running over 25 years in Germany, and there's this one evil, Knievel woman in the house who is like the caretaker, but she's a big gossiper. So she used to get attacked on the roads in Germany as well because people perceived her as this person. They couldn't distinguish between the actor and the yeah. So I have not seen her in anywhere in anything else except this. That was her success, and that was also the end of of her because I don't know if is it still in this day and age where there's so much information about actors out as well that people can't distinguish between the character you're playing and the actor that you are,
Mm.
because the
Now I'm going to
charisma is
ask.
not there anymore. Everybody's come shift in with me, Malaika, shift in with me, or what? Everybody's doing some reality show, and everybody's opening up their doors, and everybody's so accessible. There is no mystery around actors anymore. So if there's no mystery, you see them normally sitting on the sofa with a jeans and t-shirt and a cup of coffee, then I think they can take off from that stereotype that they got caught in with doing the same kind of characters for decades in a row.
So in that sense, it's actually a double-edged sword, in your opinion, then, that if you get into a character that really takes off, it's like a double-edged sword, because then people are just going to mold you in that particular image, and it's never going to change for you. Like I remember Smriti Irani and her image,
I was
as
about to
she is.
say Tulsi. You just took it out of my mouth. I was just about to say Tulsi, and yeah. So
Yeah, so Smriti Irani was like the Bahu of India, pretty much, and her success and the way she took off, and so, but this is so hard, because this is just capitalism at the end of the day. This is the market dynamics playing out, and the market is demanding a certain role. And yeah, so best of luck to those actors. But here's a question: somebody has asked it in a different sense, but I'm gonna twist it a little and ask you. So when you came to India, were you aware of Indian stereotypes? Let's say, Bollywood movies, Punjabis are always shown to be drunkards, like as if, and non-vegetarian eaters. By the way, the reality is 70% of Punjab is vegetarian. I think Punjab is the second or the
wow.
third most vegetarian state of India. But if you look at the Punjabi stereotype, it is they are either drunk or they are eating non-veg. I don't know why. Bengalis are mocked for being Marxists all the time, and I don't know how to say it, but northeastern women are insulted in a pathetic way, and also white people are shown in a certain way, especially white women are shown in a very demeaning way. I say this with full
Hmm.
responsibility. Were you aware of these Indian stereotypes when you had come to India?
No, no. I came in really like completely uh, clueless. I had no idea about stereotypes. I didn't even understand in the beginning this Mumbai and Maharashtra. Maharashtra is a state in India. Because I was coming in and I was immediately overwhelmed with so much work that it took me some time to understand what is going on. And everybody was just then I was doing shooting for Kasauti Zindagi Ki for Balaji. I was the Firangi Bahu and I was just struggling with these 14, 16, 18 hours days every day and the Hindi language because they made my character speak Hindi, like only Shuddh Hindi. So, and I was just, ये क्या हो रहा है? नहीं पढ़ नहीं सकते, कोई है नहीं मदद करने के लिए, तो मैं क्या करूँ? So at that time, I was just, everybody around me was my co-actor and I didn't know anything about who is what. I wouldn't have been able to pick it up. Seriously not. I think an understanding like that only comes later because we have this to some extent in Germany as well, but we all speak the same language. We just have German there, and we have like the North people, they are like silent and sulky, and then the South people, they're always just wearing a lederhose and they eat a sausage. We have these kinds of stereotypes as well. But if you come from the outside, you will not see that. I think that is a level down inside the culture. The direct stereotypes that are happening in a society. I don't think that shows up to anybody who comes new to a country.
But do you think, in your view, in your experience, Indian cinema will ever come to a time where, like, I was a fan of Tom Alter. I used to love Tom Alter. I used to find him
Mm.
to be a very good artist. And my first and my most cherished memory of Tom Alter, ironically, is not as him acting. My most cherished memory of Tom Alter is him interviewing Sachin Tendulkar. I think one of the first interviews of the great Sachin Tendulkar when he was a young kid was done by Tom Alter. Tom Alter was fantastic. He spoke Hindi just like any regular Indian would, right? Because he was pretty much
Yeah, yeah.
raised here.
I know he was
His,
born here. Yeah, I
yeah,
worked
his
with him 3 times. He was
yeah.
born
So
here, and he. He felt Indian. He was Indian.
Yeah, he was Indian. Now, he, in that sense, was pretty much accepted in Indian society. Like, but was Tom, in your view, the exception or the norm?
No, yeah, the characters that he was being offered, they were not stereotypes. They were all stereotypes. No, whatever he was doing, he was not being able to break out of that.
But do you think today we will be maybe 5, 10, 15 years down the line? Do you think there can be a time in our society? Okay, I get it. India is now, and this will come with more urbanization, more breaking of caste barriers in India, more intercaste marriages, interethnic marriages,
Mm.
etc., etc.
Mm.
But do you see a time in India where there might be a movie where a white guy or a white girl just finds an Indian? And because I'll give you an example as an analogy of one of the most disturbing movies I saw in America. It was something to do with the green card of one. I think it was called An American Born Confused Desi or something. I don't remember the movie name. It was years ago, and that was the most stereotypical movie of a second generation Indian girl marrying a white guy. But do you think ever in the history of Indian cinema there will be a time where you could just play a role of just a person who is just an Indian doing Indian things, and you just happen to be white? Is what I'm saying. Your skin color, your ethnicity, where you come from does not matter, and we'll just be looking at people, and yeah, he just happens to be that, happens to be this. Do you think we have a scope for that?
Ooh. That's a very difficult question to answer just for me because just by the way I look, I will always have to have a backstory. I think I always have to have a backstory of where I came from. I think the nearest I came to being just a character was in Makran Deshpande's movie Shahrukh Bola Khoobsurat Hai Tu, where I was a half Indian. So my character was speaking some Hindi, and she had a mom who was Indian and a dad who was German, and so that was the nearest. I think it because without a backstory, how will you make? Where do I come from? Why am I suddenly in this country? you need to come up with something because नहीं तो गोरी है ना तो क्या करूँ? So I don't just playing an Indian. I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening. There are actors who look Indian and can speak some Hindi, and they play these kinds of characters. But for me, I don't think they're foreigners, and they come here, and because they have this black hair and the eyes and the features or whatever, they can play an Indian character. But just playing, no, I don't see that. I see an acceptance in society. I mean, I'm living my life here, and I go on the road and I do my shopping, and I'm here and I'm there, and people are just cool about it. I see an acceptance in society. I don't know if it will ever transfer on screen like that.
Hmm. Have you noticed German stereotypes in Indian television, Indian cinema?
I don't think so. No, no, because I think there's such a minority. I have no.
It's
The stereotyping that's happening only is happening on Twitter. If somebody runs out of arguments, they throw Nazi at me. That's the biggest stereotyping that can happen. I think that's like I don't know what to say to you anymore. I just call you a Nazi and the story's over. I'm like, okay, bye, be blessed, take care, love you. So what else you want to say to people like that?
in a very weird way, and don't get me wrong, but do you think even when it comes to obsession with white people, Indians are most obsessed with the British and American white people?
Because the majority are here, no? From those countries. I think because I don't know. I think we have 1,500 Germans in the whole of India or something like that. So that's minusculous. Yeah, I don't know the exact number, but we have very little. We're just a few people here, and I know only two others. No, three, but one is not here anymore. So, but stereotyping is something that is the Germans in Hollywood. They get stereotyped a lot.
Okay, can you tell us
Yeah,
about that then? That would be interesting.
because I had this experience that in 2000 and Eight or nine, a big German magazine came to me and they wanted me to talk about stereotyping and how I'm stereotyped here as the Nazi. And I'm like, I'm not getting stereotyped as a Nazi because people are not, the stories are not like that here. You know, you don't have war movies, you don't have these kinds of things. So I'm not getting these kinds of parts. So they were very disappointed because they came with this, we want this, we want you, but we want the story that we have in mind. So please say what we want you to say. And I'm like, nah, I can't say what you want me to say because it's not the truth. So,
All
and
right.
then I
So
saw
so
the
in a
article later, and I saw the article later, and then there were a lot of Germans in LA and Hollywood, and they were mostly cast as the yeah, but the goon or the Nazi or the bad guy, the very bad the German accent. They make them do that even if they just speak normal German. And I mean, they don't get bigger parts as well. If they want to cast somebody as a German, they take Diane Kruger and make her German. So yeah, okay.
so they don't even get the Germans most of the time. They just get someone else to play the
No,
German.
no, no. I'm always laughing at these. I mean, I can understand. You're making a movie about you're taking a German story, and then everybody in that movie is American or British actor. There's not one German in it.
Wow. So I guess when it comes to pathetic stereotypes, it's just everywhere. That's just second nature to human beings. Like, I mean, you look at the Italian stereotypes in Hollywood, right? There is a particular way the Italians are. Everybody is from the mafiosas, the hand movements like
Yeah,
this. It was so funny.
yeah.
Like everybody is a mafiosa. I guess it's either mafiosas or they have to like baseball or something. I've noticed. Apparently, they have this obsession with
And
baseball.
they take the same actors. They
Yeah.
take the same actors. We just saw Comeback Trail the other day with Robert De Niro, and again the whole crew was the same kind of actors. We're like, okay, X, Y, Z, yeah, Godfellas, and yeah. So you can just tick them off. You will see the same same kind of actors who are doing the same kind of characters. Uh, they're getting stereotyped as well.
So okay, so
So in that
Ro-
sense, my stereotyping has been very diverse. I've played a British, and I've played French, and I've played German, and I played half Indian, and I played from anywhere. Been quite lucky in that respect.
but do you see? So obviously, like, and I know you've always said that your story is very different. But do you see any hope when it comes to reduction in this in the coming future? Let's say, in terms of like I'll tell you one thing that bothers me the most is you know like not just women from Western Europe, but the other part of Europe too. The stereotyping those women face it's very disturbing in India. I get very disturbed how they are portrayed. It bugs me a lot internally. I have always found it disgusting. It is, in fact, I if I see something like that, I just switch off. I turn
Switch
the
off.
movie off.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can. Me too. Mm.
yeah. It bothers me no end. But let's say if I through this platform, if you were to give a message to my viewers and my audiences who consume a lot of cinema, a lot of OTT material, etc., etc., what would you give them as your message? How do we, in a subtle way, let creators know that we also get bothered by these things?
Maybe write to them because that's the only way I can see it. Twitter is the best forum for that. I think if you just go to the channel page and you write to them about a certain show, what bothers you in that show, then it will definitely work. Because to some extent, it just came to my mind something completely. One second. We have these new OTT platform shows where I see the Indian actors are trying to copy the West. You get my drift about they're giving galis every 2 seconds. They're constantly drinking something or the other, or they're smoking cigarettes. And I'm like, what is going on? I don't know anybody like that. I don't see anybody coming home and opening a bottle of wine and immediately starting to drink. I don't see that, and it's and every second, a very confusing translation of American swear words. Just they're translated into something you're like, what was that supposed to be? Yeah. So that is also happening. So that they're stereotype. Then what is happening there? Are they're taking the shows from there and copying it on themselves, trying to be progressive and cool, or what is going on there? Sorry to sidestep that. It was just something that I have seen, and I've discussed it with Akhil as well, and we were both like, what is going on there? Why are there so many shows where the F word is being used constantly for no rhyme, no reason, and it sticks out like a sore thumb because it's not a natural thing.
Well,
I
that's
don't
pretty
say
much.
Indians
Please
swear,
complete your.
but they swear
Yes.
very colorful in a very different way. You have to write it in that way. You don't have to copy some script from somewhere else. Sometimes I feel like the writing is hampering a lot as well.
Yeah, I'm not surprised with that, because if you look at Indian stand-up comedy too, when it comes to stand-up comedy in India, uh, if you look at the routine of 95% of Indian stand-up comics who are English stand-up comics, I'm not talking about the ones in Hindi or in other regional
Hmm.
languages, whether it's Marathi or any Southern Indian languages. They're pretty original. They have their own real experiences that they share. But the moment you see English stand-up comedy, they just have to drop in the F bomb, you know, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on, and that's just that's what we call wannabeism. It's a class of Indians who were, unfortunately for them, born and raised in Mumbai and Delhi, but their hearts are in New York, London,
It's so weird.
and
Why? Why would you do that? You have such a rich culture. You have such an amazing culture, and there's enough to make fun of in this culture. If you want to make fun of it, you don't need to take. You can't be an Indian Ricky Gervais. It's not happening because he's a different kind of a style. He's making a different kind of a black comedy, and he's using swear words. But they draw. He's saying a sentence, and it's somewhere there, and you're not even realizing he said it. And here it's like somebody's saying a sentence, and in the end he's like, oh, I said that word, did you hear me? Okay, yeah, underlined, got it. And it's not necessary. I think there are people, you could be really good. Yeah, I think there's a scope for this here, definitely. And then in comedy you need to play with stereotypes, otherwise where's the film? You can't make it without. I don't see there's a way out of this in that
yeah,
sense.
which is why Russell Peters is so wonderful, and I love Russell Peters for that, because he's the one guy who got stereotypes right. He's the one guy who got them right. So before I let you go, Suzanne, this is my last question to you. All right. So tell
Hmm.
me some stereotypes which could be positive, and maybe if these stereotypes came out, we would actually help society in a way. So I'll tell you why. I'll use an example asked by a live viewer, and this is my last question to you. So Fearless Nadia played a female Zorro-like action star role in the 1930s in Indian cinema, and she became a legend for her Hunter Wali roles. I mean, so
Yeah.
would you consider that as a positive stereotype? Or if I want to end on a positive note, what do you think would be some of the positive stereotypes that if we use them actively, whether in Hollywood or in Indian cinema, we could actually add value to the society?
The Indian loving foreigner, the foreigner who comes and wants to study about the country and the culture and is being exposed to the richness of the culture. I played those characters and they were very nice to play because you are showing how rich this country is. Like the same question, the question that I get again and again, why India? Why do you stay there? I said, where do I get to? Go on a plane, fly 1 hour, land in a different country and still be in India and act in that. I was just last year I shot in Kochi, my first Malayalam movie. I was talking in English, but I flew to Kochi and I felt like I'm somewhere else. Different food, different language, different signboards, but the essence is Indian. So I said that is such a wonderful thing. And if you can just show a foreigner who travels through India and sees maybe not only the XYZ things, but sees more, maybe goes to Hampi, goes to Karnataka, goes to Khajuraho, not do the typical, that's the Taj and that's the gateway of India and bye bye Tata, you know, try to find a connection, see her talking to people on the road, trying to connect with people, and not make that into a stereotype. Make it into a road movie where a foreigner goes and explores the depths of India and becomes totally in love with it and maybe streams about it or whatever. So that would be something where I would say that kind of a stereotype would be very positive for everybody involved.
Just a follow up, and trust me, this will be the last one. Do you think there is a trust deficit when it comes to these things not happening? Because the way the average Indian looks at it is, I'm just trying to oversimplify it for the benefit of everyone, is that when they see the West stereotyping India as your typical slumdog millionaire, there is
Mm,
nothing in
yeah.
India but problems. So do you think that creates a trust deficit scenario where we don't trust them, and they keep portraying us in a certain way, that to for a project like this to fructify, it's just the social situation is not there, and for something like this to come off, you actually need trust from both sides?
Oh, you need more money and a big name. I think that's more of an issue. If you want to have any project done, the first question is like, who have you attached to it? And because they're still thinking a big name is bringing people into the cinema, that's the same here and the same there. I'm talking about both the sides, so that's more of an issue. The money. Here's the money. That's more of an issue. Big name needs to be attached to a project, and then it can take off. Not the story is important.
That's interesting.
It's
So eventually it all boils down to capitalism, I guess.
I guess so. I guess so because I have a friend who has a fantastic script and he would love to cast me in the mother's part, and he can't because he needs to have a big American name attached to the project. So he can't work with me, even though he would love to work with me because the funding that he's getting, the funding is tied up with this clause. This has to be there. A big name has to be there. Otherwise, you're not getting the funding, and then he can't do it. And better to make the movie.
Ah, well, Suzanne, it is what it is. So before we
It
wrap
is
things
what
up,
it is.
one, yeah, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. When I made the podcast stream page ready yesterday, so I'll tell you, I got a couple of emails, and I have to tell you on behalf of my listeners and viewers, they loved your role especially in Ashoka. So they told me that, can you please tell her we absolutely loved and adored her in that movie. So, on behalf of my listeners and viewers, I want to thank you once again for coming on the podcast and spending some time chatting with everyone and even answering the audience questions. And I wish you nothing but success. And I hope that we get over these stereotypes, and we can start looking at people as individuals first, and at the race and ethnicity and group memberships next. And wishing
Oh,
hopefully we'll see you back on the podcast again.
oh, I would love to. This was very interesting. I enjoyed it a lot. And thanks to technology, nowadays we can do these kinds of things, and they are amazing.
Thank you once again. All right, guys, we're going to wrap today's podcast up over here. But before we wrap the podcast, once again, in the description of the podcast, I have left Suzanne's Twitter handle and her website. You can go and check all her work out. You can follow her on social media. As far as I'm concerned, I'll request all of you to like the Charvak podcast video, subscribe to me on YouTube, and leave a comment. Also, if you want to support the Charvak podcast, you can become a member on YouTube, Patreon, Fanmo. You can buy the merch on kushalmehra.com or send your donations through UPI. I try my best to have discussions that nobody wants to have. I don't do clickbait because that's not my nature. I try to have these issues because somebody has to do them. And you, the people who support me, keep driving me. So please keep supporting me, and I'll go on addressing these issues. I'll see you next time. Until then, namaste. Take care. Bye bye.